It all started the night I got home from a family reunion, the kind where hugs are too tight, questions too sharp, and love feels more like obligation. I opened my banking app out of habit, expecting peace of mind, but instead, I found emptiness. Not stolen by strangers, but drained by someone I trusted most, my father. What followed wasn't just about missing money, it was about a lifetime of silent betrayal finally cracking open, and that was only the beginning. Sometimes we all need a soft space to land. Let this story be yours. Warm drink ready? Type 1 to stay with us. The numbers on my screen didn't make sense. Just the day before, my checking account had over $14,000. That evening, it showed $87.16. I blinked, refreshed the page, checked again. The same. My breath hitched as I opened my transaction history. 3 large transfers had been made over the weekend, all of them traced back to a familiar IP address, my parents' Wi-Fi. The same network I'd connected to during the reunion. A sick, sinking feeling twisted in my stomach. I wanted to believe it was some kind of mistake, a glitch, a hack. But then I saw the names on the transfers. Darlene, my sister, Pamela, my mother, Ricky, my father, my own family. People I'd shared birthdays with, bought groceries for, helped pay rent when times were tough. And now they had drained my savings without a word, without a warning. When I confronted them that same night, my father didn't even deny it. He looked at me and said, "We needed it," as if that justified everything. Darlene sighed like I was being dramatic, and my mother tilted her head, wine glass in hand, and said gently, "Don't be so upset, sweetheart. It's just money." But it wasn't just money. It was trust. It was security. It was years of effort and sacrifice wiped out in 3 unauthorized clicks. That confrontation opened a door I couldn't close again. Memories I had brushed aside came rushing back. The emergencies that always needed a little help. The credit card I supposedly opened years ago, even though I never applied for it. The personal loan co-signed in my name without my knowledge. Each moment had once felt like a separate, forgivable misstep. But now I saw them for what they were. A pattern. A deliberate system of manipulation, all under the cover of family love. And the worst part? They never asked. They just took. Not once did anyone pick up the phone to say, "We're in trouble, can you help?" They assumed I'd say yes. Because I always had. They didn't steal because they were desperate. They stole because they believed I wouldn't fight back. And until that moment, they were right. That night, as I drove home in silence, the echo of my father's words, "You're the lucky one in this family," rang in my ears. I realized they didn't see me as a daughter, a sister, or even a person. I was a backup plan, a safety net, a bank account in human form. And now that account was empty, but for the first time, I wasn't. And the truth was, they hadn't just taken my money. They'd taken advantage of my silence, my sense of duty, my need to keep the peace. What I thought was love, support, closeness, loyalty, had quietly morphed into obligation, into guilt, into something transactional. For years, I had mistaken manipulation for family ties. The signs had been there all along. I remembered the phone call from Darlene just a week before the reunion, her voice trembling, telling me she needed $300 for school supplies for her daughters. She sounded desperate, so I didn't hesitate. 10 minutes later, the money was on its way. 2 days after that, she posted a photo on Instagram, her nails freshly done, a mimosa in hand. The caption read, "Self-Care Sunday." I remember staring at that picture, feeling a quiet disbelief bloom in my chest. But I still gave her the benefit of the doubt. Maybe someone else paid. Maybe she really needed a break. Looking back, that moment was just one of many. There had been so many just one-time favors, rent payments, car repairs, surprise bills, all wrapped in soft apologies and familial guilt. "You're just better with money," my mother used to say like it was a compliment. But underneath her words was something colder, expectation. I wasn't being appreciated, I was being used. No one ever asked how I was doing. No one ever offered to return the favor. Instead, they treated my stability like a shared resource, something they were entitled to dip into whenever their lives went sideways. And if I hesitated, even for a moment, I was the bad guy. The selfish one, the ungrateful daughter. It wasn't just about the money they took, it was how they took it. Quietly, confidently, without shame. They didn't just assume I'd help, they knew I would, because I always had. And every time I did, I reinforced the narrative they built around me, that I existed to carry their weight, that my success was theirs to borrow. They never saw the cost. The sleepless nights, the stress of juggling my own responsibilities while secretly covering theirs. the resentment I swallowed just to keep the family from falling apart. They only saw the outcome. They got what they needed, and I stayed quiet, every time. But this time, I couldn't ignore it anymore. Seeing my empty account didn't just shake me, it cleared my vision. It forced me to confront the uncomfortable truth. They didn't love me, in spite of what I could give. They loved me because of it. My kindness had become a currency they spent freely. And as I sat alone in my apartment that night, surrounded by silence and the hum of my refrigerator, I realized something even more painful than the theft itself. They never asked because they never thought they had to. In their eyes, helping them wasn't a gift. It was my duty, my role, and I was done playing it. That night marked a shift, not just in how I saw them, but in how I saw myself. I wasn't just the responsible one anymore. I was the woman they had underestimated, overused, and finally pushed too far. The next morning, I sat at my kitchen table, the stale smell of last night's confrontation still hanging in the air, and began to gather everything, not just my thoughts, but my proof. Bank statements, IP addresses, transfer records, old emails, the fraudulent credit card, the loan I never signed. It was all there, scattered across my laptop and desk like puzzle pieces finally coming together. With every document I found, the anger gave way to something stronger: clarity. This wasn't about family drama anymore. This was legal. It was financial abuse, identity theft, and fraud, and it had gone on for too long. I organized everything into a neat black folder and stared at it for a long time. It looked so ordinary, sitting there next to my keys. But it held years of betrayal, years of silence, years of being told, "It's just how family is." I had believed that once, not anymore. That evening, I drove back to my parents' house, not to yell, not to cry, but to deliver truth. When Pamela opened the door, she looked surprised but didn't ask questions. Ricky sat in his usual recliner, ESPN humming behind him. Darlene, glued to her phone, barely acknowledged me. I didn't sit. I didn't smile. I placed the folder on the coffee table and said, "This is proof, and the last time I'll explain anything." Their reactions were predictable: deflection, dismissal. Darlene rolled her eyes and accused me of overreacting. Pamela gave me the same soft, guilt-laced expression she always used when she wanted me to back down. Ricky shrugged and said, "We all do what we have to for family." But this time, I didn't flinch, I didn't argue. I laid out the facts: the forged loan documents, the credit card tied to their IP address, the stolen money. I gave them 48 hours to fix it, to come clean, to remove my name from every account they had dragged me into, or I would go legal. They didn't believe me, not really. Not until I said the words they never expected to hear. "If you ever use my name again, I'll use yours." In court, I left without slamming the door. I didn't need drama to prove my point. I had something more powerful now: evidence, resolve, and a timeline. And I kept my word. When the deadline passed and no one called, I made an appointment with a lawyer. I handed him everything. His reaction was immediate and confident. "You have a case, and it's airtight." For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could exhale. Taking legal action wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming the pieces of myself they had chipped away for years. My name, my credit, my peace. I wasn't trying to destroy them. I was trying to stop the destruction of me. And as I stepped out of that office into the afternoon sun, I realized something important. I wasn't scared anymore. I was ready. But I underestimated just how quiet things would get once I took that step. There were no angry phone calls, no tearful voicemails, no dramatic knocks on my door begging me to reconsider. Just silence. A cold, calculated silence. The kind that doesn't come from confusion, but from punishment. This wasn't a misunderstanding to them. This was betrayal. I was the traitor. Not because they didn't do something wrong, but because I refused to stay quiet about it. For the first few days, the silence felt heavy. Not peaceful, not freeing, just empty. I kept checking my phone, half expecting a message, even a sarcastic one, just to prove they still cared. But there was nothing. They didn't just ignore me. They erased me. But even that told me everything I needed to know. Their silence was strategic, a message. If I wasn't going to play the role of the generous daughter, the agreeable sister, the quiet provider, they wanted no part of me. It was their way of reclaiming control. No apologies, no accountability, just absence. At first, I thought I would feel lost without them. I had built my life around being needed, around answering their calls, sending the money, putting out the fires. Without the chaos, I didn't know what to do with the stillness. But slowly, something inside me began to shift. I started using that silence to rebuild. Evenings that were once filled with stress and obligation became mine again. I'd come home from work, kick off my shoes, and light a candle just because I liked the smell. I'd make dinner for one and not feel sorry about it. I started sleeping better, dreaming again. Dreams that weren't haunted by guilt or betrayal, but full of space and air and quiet. Then, one Saturday night, a text lit up my phone. It was from Pamela. "Lunch at 1 tomorrow. Just us. Let's talk. Like family." My stomach turned. Just us had always been code for let's sweep this under the rug without anyone watching. Part of me wanted to ignore it, block the number, move on. But another part, the one that needed to face the last of it, knew I had to go. The next day I walked into their house like I was entering a courtroom, not a home. The table was already set, for 4, not 2. So much for just us. They tried to play it light at first. Small talk. Rolled out roast and sweet tea. But I didn't sit down. I didn't smile. I placed a sealed envelope on my plate and said calmly, "I'm not here to eat." Their faces shifted. Ricky leaned back like this was all an inconvenience. Pamela gave me her sad eyes. Darlene didn't look up from her phone. "I know what you've told people," I said. "That I offered all of this, that I overreacted, but I didn't offer anything. You took it, and you lied." I slid a printed screenshot across the table, messages between Pamela and a cousin, painting me as the overdramatic one, the martyr. Their expressions changed then, panic, shame, anger. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. "I'm giving you one last chance," I said. "After today, I go public. I go legal, fully. This is your notice." And for the first time, I saw it in their eyes. Not guilt, not sorrow, fear. And it didn't make me feel powerful. It didn't feel like victory. It felt like clarity. Like watching the final act of a play I never auditioned for, realizing I was never a character. They'd only ever seen me as the stage, a place to stand, to take up space, to perform. After that final warning, I walked out of my parents' house without looking back. Not out of anger, not out of defiance, but out of resolve. I was done waiting for apologies that would never come. Done hoping they'd suddenly see me differently, treat me better, acknowledge what they'd done. If silence was their punishment, then I accepted it, gladly, because this time it came with peace. The days that followed were quiet, but in a different way than before. Not heavy or hollow, just still. Stillness. I could finally live inside without fear of it being shattered by an obligation I didn't agree to or a call I didn't want to answer. I began filling my time with things I used to postpone. I went for walks, cooked new recipes, cleaned out the clutter in my apartment, physically and emotionally. Then, 3 days later, Addison appeared at my door with a backpack and a bright smile, completely unaware of the war she'd been dropped into. "Mom said I'm sleeping over tonight," she chirped. There had been no call, no text, just a child, used as a shield, again. I welcomed her in because none of this was her fault. We baked cookies, watched cartoons, laughed, and when she showed me her tablet, an open group chat blinked on the screen. Carver Core, my parents, my sister, cousins. Weeks of messages ridiculing me, mocking my reaction, calling me paranoid and overly dramatic. Even saying they regretted letting me go to college. That one stung, but I didn't cry. I screenshotted everything. The next morning, I went back to my lawyer. This time, it wasn't just about stolen money. It was about character assassination, identity misuse, emotional coercion. I handed him the folder and said firmly, "All of them, name by name, no more grace." He nodded. "You're not just building a case, you're setting a boundary the legal system will enforce." Then came the formal filings, the cease and desist letters, the subpoenas, the investigations. I didn't hide. I didn't warn. I followed through. And when Darlene tried one last time, sending Addison to my door again, casually mentioning gifts she'd instructed her daughter to lie about, I knew exactly what I had to do. I confronted her, face to face, calm, direct, unflinching. "You're not just stealing," I said. "You're teaching your daughter that lies are survival, that manipulation is love, and I won't let her become you." That was the last time I saw her. Weeks later, I packed my life into a car and crossed state lines. Eugene, Oregon welcomed me not with noise, but with quiet. This time, the good kind. The kind that whispered, "You made it out." And on my balcony, one quiet morning, I finally said the truth out loud. I didn't lose a family, I lost a cage. And that made all the difference.